All right, team, we are back for I can't believe it. This is our last session of the whole summit. I can't think of a better one to end on with some of the best people. So give me a second, everybody, as I go ahead and add all of our presenters in. So Jen, hi Jen, welcome Jen. We've got Carissa. Hi Carissa, welcome. Chris, hi, so good to see you. And then Sierra, is that who rounds us out, or am I missing anyone? And Liz. And Liz. All right. Over to you all. Sierra, I'll pass it to you. And
All
Shivani,
right.
same.
Let me get my presentation up for y'all. Thanks for hanging in there, everybody. What an amazing 3 days. Coming to a close. Hope to keep you engaged. And hopefully, you're not too disturbed by either the incredibly loud construction happening right outside my house or my 15-year-old dog, which is snoring right beside me.
We can't hear any of those things, but we would love to see your dog if you wanted to show us them.
He is literally napping.
Oh,
So,
don't do that. Don't do that then.
yeah. So I'll leave those things. But yeah, good. Apple doing its job then, cutting out the sound. All right. We are looking for a screen. And going back. Here we are. Everybody can see. Moving beyond compliance to build a truly inclusive culture. Yes? Maybe thumbs up or some nods or some. Okay. All right, y'all. We'll get started. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Today, we're going to explore, right, what it means to move beyond just compliance to build a truly inclusive culture in your organization. And the key here is to just go beyond, right, the bare minimum requirements that exist and really embrace diversity, equity, inclusion as core values. And so that means fostering an environment where everyone can feel welcomed, respected, able to contribute in whatever means they can, by whatever means they can. It's about creating a culture shift, obviously, not just checking the boxes. So we really need to challenge our assumptions, our biases, and empower all of our underrepresented groups. And by doing this, of course, we can unlock full potential of our workforce and really drive innovation through diverse perspectives. So there's a lot of us just in this last session. I just got to thinking about alt text here, and I thought, well, 7 happy humans, right? Just hoping to help and hoping to have a good time here with y'all with this inclusive policy design. So there I am on that left side there, Sierra, and then we have Leah, Carissa, Liz, Jennifer, Christopher, and Shivani in the mix here who helped bring this presentation to life today. So in the chat, if you wouldn't mind, just let us know how you're joining this call today. Audio only, maybe you've got captions on, ASL, maybe a screen reader, or some other amazing way that technology has allowed for you to enter this space. Just let us know in the chat. And as you're doing so, I am going to go through some shared commitments that we worked with as we built this presentation, but that we also offer you all. And as we enter into breakout rooms together and share this space, our commitments to each other. So designed to create a respectful, of course, inclusive and productive discussion. So just briefly, one mic, there'll be an opportunity for everyone to speak, and just one person speaking at a time. We'll make sure that we can avoid talking over each other. The step up, step back is an ask to balance participation, right? So everyone has a chance to contribute. Definitely assume good intent, but own your impact, of course, as well, right? Recognize that our intent may not match the impact we have on others, which leads into this ouch, oops, repair. If someone says something hurtful, pause to address it. If you do, say sorry and thank you for the correction. Ask before advice, so listen before offering suggestions unless someone specifically asks for input. And of course, the tried and true, nothing about us without us. We're going to center perspectives and experience of those most impacted. I'm going to pass it on to my co-host, Shivani, to talk a little bit about these micro teachings, our first one.
Thanks, Sarah. I appreciate it so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Shivani. My pronouns are she, hers. I am a conflict midwife and transition designer based in New York City. I'm joining you from my home apartment in New York, brick wall. The lights are on in the background because it's very gray and rainy out, and I have some leaks in my in my house. So if you hear some rain falling inside, you're not making it up. It's very, very possible. I have a couple bookshelves behind me. I'm sitting in front of a couch with a quilt that I made, a baby photograph that I really love in my corner, and some plants, of course, in on top of the bookshelves. I am going to talk briefly about the next couple of slides. Our first micro teach here from compliance to inclusion. This first slide, the point of it is to really outline this journey from compliance to inclusion, that we kind of want to move from this check the box approach to one that's actually really co-designed well, right? That we kind of put this together. So there's four key stages along this timeline or kind of spectrum here. The first one is checking the box. Second one is more performative. Third one is participatory, and the fourth one is co-designed. Every kind of stage along that, from 1 to 4, is a deeper shift towards deeper engagement, towards more inclusion, towards kind of more participation, more true inclusion, and not this like check the box sort of version. That first check the box stage is really that most basic, where organizations are just trying to comply with the basic legal requirements, usually of like, again, let's just check the box, make sure that we're not out of compliance with anything. Usually that kind of second step is more performative, when organizations start to do more, but it's superficial. It's just for show. It's kind of just for the sake of feeling like saying that they're kind of doing better rather than actually doing better. The third stage is when we start getting into more participatory inclusion work. That's when organizations are really actively engaging stakeholders, but that is often not, it's like a really top-down sort of design, right? Sometimes that participation might come after the fact or might come too late. What we are really trying to get towards is our fourth stage, which is co-designed as like an ideal situation where organizations, stakeholders really work together as actual partners, and that partnership is really incentivized well, it's structured well, it's structurally supported, so that those inclusive solutions are really well designed and built kind of from the ground up. I can ask you to go to the next slide, please, Sarah. Thank you. Make sure I get my notes here too. So our kind of like major what we call anti-patterns to avoid, or kind of things to kind of look out for and try to not do, or try to kind of move towards when we're moving more towards a designed, co-designed sort of process. This sort of introduces the topic of that piece of outlining those four different anti-patterns. The first anti-pattern, the first kind of thing to look out for, is what we call launch without listening. It's solutions that are based on like understanding before we actually get the needs thing. It's not just like coming up with something. So what we often see in organizations is we know that there's a problem, but let's just kind of slap a band-aid on that before we actually understand what the problem really is, what it actually looks like. The second anti-pattern is designing for the average, right? We know that there's no actual such thing as an average person, an average need, and so it kind of collapses everything down into a very flattened version instead of actually designing for the full range of accessibility, of diversity, of all the different needs that might exist. It kind of flattens everything down into, again, what we think should be there and not what we know actually should be there. Our third anti-pattern is really that participatory one. It's optics over outcomes. I'm sorry, it's the performative one. It's optics over outcomes, where it's really more based on making the organization look good. It's kind of how things might kind of be on paper, but not in practice. That's where the policies might exist, but the practices can still be really exclusive. And that's one where we can, where people will sort of, like organizations will sort of point at, but look, we have this policy on paper, but the actual lived reality of that is actually a pretty exclusive practice. And then the fourth anti-pattern that we talk about is free labor. It's extracting unpaid expertise from marginalized groups as a really harmful practice that should be avoided. So again, that's sort of structural support of actual inclusion, actual co-design. It means that free labor is not sort of taken advantage of. Our hope for these four anti-patterns is that we can offer you a framework for understanding these kind of common mistakes that organizations will run into when trying to become more inclusive, and things to look out for as what not to do or what to kind of try to design for instead of when we're actually moving towards true inclusion. Next slide, please, Sarah. Okay, so our like major point of this slide is to move from compliance-driven approaches to more inclusion-focused approaches. There are these three major switches that we can make. Those three inclusion switches that we're kind of offering you all to experiment with is to move from this one, consult after the fact, to actually co-designing from the start, right? So many different organizations say, hey, we really want to be more inclusive, and then they put something forward, and then afterwards they say, oh, hey, can you take a look at this proposal and see, or this policy and see what you think? And so often that is like something's been rolled out that's actually kind of problematic. And so co-designing from the start is a really strong way to move towards more inclusive practices. Our second switch that we encourage people to make is to shift from accommodation on request to access by default, right? Changing from the kind of baseline as like you have to ask for something before it's going to happen to our whole point is really trying to design for access and accessibility from the get-go, and that's actually our default thing, right? We're going to introduce ourselves, we're going to describe our surroundings, we're going to use closed captioning, we're going to do kind of best practices that are from that more access by default approach rather than having people needing to ask for what they specifically need and potentially have to disclose things that they don't want to necessarily enclose. Our third shift is transitioning from policy on paper to actual practice in rooms, right? This is not sufficient when it's just a policy that's on paper, something that kind of lives on a shelf and dies on a shelf that we never actually get to see and live out. But actually, what does that policy look like in practice? What does it look like in the room? We're going to go into more of these switches and kind of explore how we actually do that, especially in our breakout rooms later. I think that's it from me. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you. Definitely. Just a quick chat question for y'all as we rapidly went through these micro teachings here. This first one, just where is your organization on the continuum? You feeling like it's a check the box exercise? HR is just kind of stamping. That's it. Performative. Maybe you've got some Instagram posts. There's a little bit of marketing around the thing, but the lived experience, the real experience inside those walls is not actually inclusive or participatory, right? We're moving towards maybe we're surveying, maybe we're actually having conversations. There's an effort being made, but it's not quite co-design, which is that truly inclusive practice. Or maybe you actually do have this and hip, hip, hooray. Please tell us what's working. Share that organization. Just in the chat, where's your organization on the continuum? Yeah, I'd agree. I'd love to know one that isn't check the box. Yes, yeah. I think that is more often than not our experience, any of our experiences. And as you're answering that one, similarly think about this one. Relatedly, in your organization launching programs, policies, procedures, activities without actually listening, change efforts, without including the people who will impact the most, maybe designing for average, as if a one size fits all approach ever worked. Or optics over outcomes. Again, I think back to like all the black squares on Instagram I saw, and then like nobody did anything really about DEI or free labor extraction. Oh, that's really exciting. New job today from Liz that is designing the space with me. Yes. And the conversation started about that before I even went in. Many hearts to that. Yes. Performative is common too. Yep. One-time training, but not changing your hiring process or performance policy or onboarding process. Yes. Really got to think of the whole system. One piece is not enough. Not enough to affect real change and true transformation. All right, y'all. Liz, keep us going with micro teach number 2.
Yeah, I really love how that question right before this was how many people have seen this in their organization. And I just happen to have found one that wants to work with me from the beginning. So hi, everybody. I'm Liz Jersick. In my previous life, I led workforce planning for a very, very large healthcare system. And as of this summer, I have a very high spinal cord injury. And so I am a partial quadriplegic, they call it quadriparesis, when you have some movement, but not full movement. So if you see this thing on my face, this is actually my mouse. I cannot really type anymore. And so you talk about, the barriers and moving beyond just what the ADA says. I live it from a physical perspective every day in everything that I do. So I'm just going to get my notes up here. Okay, so let's talk about beyond ADA, right? So ADA is kind of like that floor. In the paralysis community, we call it, well, we can get in the building and there's probably a bathroom we can use, but what else is it that we can actually do in that space? More often than not, there's really not a whole lot that us, folks that are in these types of wheelchairs or scooters or mobility issues can do. I can't reach things on a high shelf, for example. And then it is that legal baseline. So it is a federally mandated law. It has you to open a business and run a business, you have to do certain things to make it accessible. But that's really where it is. It's just compliance. It's minimum standards. And we really need to think about it as that basic element. But inclusion goes way beyond that. To actively welcome and enable equitable participation for people with diverse needs. It could be somebody like me with a spinal cord injury, and it can be anything from, having those photo captions, right? What does this actually mean and portray? So there's such a wide variety that it's never that one size fits all solution. So inclusion really means creating an environment where everybody's feeling welcomed and valued and they can fully participate and not just meet that technical requirement. I can tell you that I want to use my brain and feel like I have a place to really give value back to the community. And it's been a struggle for me to try to find any kind of outlet where I felt like I could really do that. And the goal really does need to be beyond that checking the box for that ADA compliance if you're looking for that inclusive environment. And I am choosing to work where the place where I start immediately after this presentation, by the way, because they wanted to hire me knowing my limitations very much up front and said, we welcome you and we are going to design this space with this kind of desk work for you. I was blown away at the way that the person who owns this practice was just discussing it with me. So next slide, please. So there are 5 questions to ask during the design phase. So the first is, who's the most impacted and how are they being meaningfully included from the beginning? I can tell you from a workforce planning and workforce development type of perspective, large corporations do not do this from the beginning. It is not designed into the practice. The practice is, how can, people do this the most efficiently and effectively, not how can we bring the various types of people that may be qualified for these roles and make them successful in it. This is a new, very refreshing perspective for me from my previous professional career. The second is, what are their stated access needs constraints, right? We have to know what those are. And some people aren't even comfortable telling them. What can we assume would, not just assume in a negative way, but put things into place that fit a lot of different people and their needs without having to explicitly state it. I cannot say that enough, right? And then what are the potential harms that this project could create or reproduce, and how can you mitigate those? What negative things might come from this design, and how do you get ahead of that and design for those possibilities as well? And then what's the smallest reversible experiment you can co-run, right? Not everything has to be a massive change all at the same time. You can do things incrementally in small steps, right? Every step forward to inclusivity is a step forward to really bringing that culture and the value to the people that need that inclusivity. But sometimes the things that we design just don't work. right? So how do you design things that can quickly fail and then bring them back and redesign with the lessons that we learn? And then how do you use the feedback loops and show what changes? So it's not you do one thing and you just kind of let it drop, right? We all know that process improvement. You do it and then you never look at it again, and it's like, oh boy, that really didn't help us. But it's a continuous process of creating these inclusive practices. And then how do you start building that in and continuously using that feedback to make them better and better? There are two boundaries that we have to respect in this. The first is we have to compensate for lived experience. And the second is we don't want to extract trauma for learning. Some people are comfortable reliving or rehashing, at least within the paralysis community, of how did they get there, right? I'm very comfortable telling my story. There are a lot of people who are not and do not want to relive some kind of accident or thing that has happened. They just want people to respect and understand that these are the limitations that they have. And so we cannot assume that or try to get people to tell their story to figure out, well, why are they even asking this? It's not appropriate. We shouldn't be doing it. Next slide.
All right, y'all. We could blab at you all session, but we really want to co-create, right? We want to co-design something here together. So we are going to be breaking into separate rooms in order to work on an inclusive hiring policy, right? Inclusive hiring is crucial for building a diverse and equitable workforce. And we're going to put you all in a breakout room on a mission. And that's to design a hiring policy that goes fully well beyond ADA compliance to truly embrace inclusion. The current ADA baseline covers some important legal requirements, like providing reasonable accommodations and ensuring an accessible application process. But we want to push further. Like Liz said, maybe you can get into the building and maybe there's a bathroom, but what else? Right? So how do we make sure that people are actually making it into the process and sticking through it all the way and having an opportunity to actually get hired at the end of that process? So your goal is to co-design a hiring policy that actively promotes inclusion at every stage, from outreach to interviews and to onboarding. And I think that with 6 facilitators and the number of participants here, we'll probably have enough rooms for each facilitator to be in a room. You'll have 20 minutes to collaborate, and then still in that breakout room, 4 minutes to just prepare a report back. And we are going to chat a template policy document to you. And there will be tabs. We're working in Google Docs. So there'll be a tab for your breakout room with I believe the name of your facilitator even, so that you will know where to go. You won't have confusion when you enter that document. Jennifer, are we ready with the breakout rooms? Or Christopher, our tech
We are. I
gurus?
think we may want to do a little bit shorter just because we only have until 25 after for the full session. I know we want to do
Perfect.
some time, so I think let's do 20 minutes total, so that'll include time to
Beautiful.
prep for report back if that works for everyone. All right, I'm going to open
Yeah.
the room so you will see an invitation to join the breakout room.
And by invitation, she means that there is the more button on the bottom that has a 1. So click the 1 and then click breakout rooms, and we'll see you back.
I think it may have been the type where it just sends people without
Oh, hell
consent, which I
yeah.
didn't know that was possible.
Okay,
So
but it didn't send us. That's
yes.
great. Okay, that's great. All right, yes. Oh, Jess is still here as she wanted to be.
Didn't you want me here?
I did, yes. I'm
Okay.
so
Hi,
glad you're here.
Jen.
Hello, hello.
Bye, Christy. All
Okay,
right, I'm gonna go on mute and use the restroom.
Do it.
Brie, remind me how long until they come back? How many minutes do we have before they come back?
I'm seeing
We have
12 minutes.
12 minutes.
12?
Yes.
I could walk around the block in that time.
But you won't.
I might.
You could do it.
No, I'm not going to.
Prove it. Prove
No,
it that
I'm
you-
not. I
prove
did it
that you can.
yesterday, but it was helpful, but we're almost done. So I'll just,
We'll just go do a quick jog.
Oh, yeah. I'm not increasing my heart rate now. Are you crazy?
Okay, bye.
Bye.
I know we have a few folks joining. We are in breakout rooms right now for the next 6 minutes. I'm happy to put you into a breakout room if you want to join and just observe, or you can wait until everyone comes back in at about 20 after the hour. So feel free to let me know in the chat if you want to be added to a breakout room. Okay, for those of us in the main room, we are about to bring everyone back in from their breakout rooms.
Oh, hell yeah.
In 1 minute. They're getting the countdown.
All right, coming back. Getting my screen up. All right. We had, I think, some pretty intimate groups with just a few folks in each. So maybe we could just start from the first on the list down to the last. It was at the top of our ADA compliant policy document. Whose breakout room was that? Which of our facilitators had the first one?
That was me.
Okay.
Um, who was in my group? Janelle, I think you would offer a really interesting perspective, given that sorry if I'm gonna out you here, but that you're new to this journey. And so I think that added a really interesting way of conversation about looking at what questions. There was probably a lot more, Sarah, what I would say is probably there were a lot more questions about why do we need to be thinking about this beyond compliance? And so that was an interesting conversation to be
Yeah.
having. So, Janelle, don't know if you want to come off mic and add anything to that.
Jacqueline.
Jacqueline,
You're
sorry,
close.
Jacqueline.
It's okay. You're close. Really, for our conversation, because I am so new to this and I want to get it right, I have a lot of questions on, am I overthinking? Am I not thinking clearly enough? Have I exercised discretion to where I've just exhausted? So I think those are just a lot of questions for me so that I can make sure that each place, each clinic, each hospital is more inclusive in what we're doing to actually support real workers and people that are looking for work. Because I feel like that's such a huge burden right now in healthcare. We're not opening our lens as much as we should be.
Mhm. Mhm. Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, and wherever you're starting, right, is a great place to start. If you're new to this, you're in the middle, you're a seasoned vet, there's still so much to learn, particularly as we become more aware of all of the differences, right, that make up, the patterns of the human species. We're going to learn things, right, new things that we didn't know, even the experts. So thank you for your questions. That is exactly the mindset that we need. It's just asking questions. How can we do this? How can we do better? What should I be thinking of? Am I overthinking it? What is the benefit to doing this? Thank you for willing to ask those questions and for taking those steps at your organization. Next group, somebody want to come off mic and share from our second breakout room.
Yes. We decided I can do the report out. So I'll share what came up in our group. I was in a group with Leah and Krista, and we went kind of through each step of the hiring process and talked about what are some things that we might change. So we started with the job posting. We talked about changing the way the job posting is written. Krista had the great idea of describing what is the impact the job has and what would the day-to-day responsibilities be versus saying like what past experience is required of the candidate, and that kind of opens up who might apply. We also talked about just like what kind of language, like adding to the policy, like some guidelines around what kind of language not to use that might be exclusive or discourage people from applying. Um, and then we talked a little bit about like what are some things that we might measure to see the impact of changes that we might make. So we talked about like measuring pass-through rates. We talked about like if you changed the EEO statement to something more proactive and talking about values and inclusion, would that impact who applies and the type of people that applied? We talked about, the importance of like measuring those pass-through rates to see if there actually is an impact, because even if you change your job description and you do an amazing job at that, but recruiters are still kind of looking at applications in the same way, you might not see that same impact. So that's some of what came up in our group.
Yeah, right on. Next group. What's
All
your
right.
share?
I think we're group 3. We had a very, very tiny little group and it was beautiful and very mighty. So we had a couple of pieces. I think our group was really talking about, like, I think they already have a fantastic kind of job hiring policy process in place. And we really started with the very beginning with like, there needs to be a really phenomenal job posting that really well matches the actual job description. And like, that sounds like such a basic thing, but I think that that's often something that's really missing, right? That like the job posting doesn't always match the real job description, the real requirements of the job. So even just kind of like starting with this very basic thing, but was like a really profound, I think, place to start. We talked about trying to remove barriers like mandatory degrees and validating lived experience instead. So that's like one option, one kind of easy thing to make lots of different kinds of experience count. And that was true both in the kind of the evaluation process, but also in our like hiring and interview process. So we were talking about things like making sure that there are lots of different ways of participating, and like trying to recognize those different participation styles. We were talking about it first as just introverts versus extroverts, right? If we have somebody who's really introverted in a space that wants to has to participate in a group interview process, that's going to be a really difficult thing to do. And we want to kind of validate or offer lots of different ways of participation. We talked about the importance of having some really standardized core questions for consistency across every single candidate, but also wanting to make sure that evaluation criteria is consistent across candidates, and also wanting to allow for that flexibility for equity, and again, that like different ways of participation and different strengths that people have, and like not dinging people for what we maybe think would be a difference of participation style or actually an accessibility question. We talked about transparent communication. We talked about not mandating disclosure, but trying to keep the conversation open, making sure there's lots of different ways of feedback loops for continuous improvement so that people kind of at every point in the process have a chance to reflect on what's working and what's not working so well. Those were there's so much more that I keep talking about, so I'll let it go for now, but some really great highlights in that conversation.
Definitely tiny and mighty indeed. Liz, do you want to speak for our group? I can also chime in.
We might as well do it together.
Yeah.
We took the approach where we read through the document, kind of picked the document apart a little bit, kind of this analytical approach to it. And one of the biggest things that I feel I'm walking away with is the discussion around the murky language within that particular document really doesn't define anything. So you have a bunch of words that say like, especially around undue hardship, right? Well, what is that? And what is that for your organization? What constitutes it? Is a $700, for example, head mouse undue burden, or is it something like $30,000 to demolish an existing bathroom to create a new one? All of those are different thresholds, and it doesn't say anything in there who the decision maker is on that threshold and what that threshold even is. And if you don't have that, then someone's just going to say, nah, for whatever reason, without any kind of actual reasoning behind it. that's my big takeaway. How about you?
Yeah. Well, I, like you said, we read through the document. And my first note that I made was actually just in the name of the policy, that if we're aiming for the floor, we're going to land on the floor. So ADA compliance was like, why don't we at least just change semantics here? I mean, part of having a set of values is that to some degree they're espoused, right? It's a North Star. You are aiming towards something better, and you probably are going to always be improving and adapting and right, moving forward on those things. And the learning that you take in ongoing over time is going to mean that you're acting on those values in a new and different way. And so it's maybe always just like slightly out of reach, but it's a stretch goal that you're always aiming towards. So I just changed the name first and foremost. And then, yeah, decision making, who's making decisions? How are we documenting the decisions that are made? That's always been a big one for me. I come from 11 years in human resources, and the degree to which people want to avoid documenting their decisions, something I was always educating around. So like, why did we make this decision? Can you back this up? Why aren't you writing this down? Maybe think about that. Why? What is the why behind this decision? And then training, it's itty bitty little like one sentence line about training. Every year, HR is going to get ADA training. Again, you're aiming for the floor, you're going to land on the floor. All right, y'all. Was there a fifth group? Liz and I were in the same group,
We
but there
had
was
too many facilitators, and yeah, not enough
okay.
to
All right,
make it
so
big enough.
good. So we're not
Just the
missing
four.
anybody. Cool. Thank you. All right, y'all. That concludes our time together. We are going to be putting together a resource packet for everybody. All these folks on the screen here, these are email addresses. So if you'd like to get in touch afterwards, you can absolutely get in touch with us. The slides will go out to you. Christopher has kindly offered to take all those notes that we collected either verbally or in the policy document itself to send out to participants so that you can refer back to the materials that we covered today. And the contacts, of course, are going to be in the resource packet since you'll get the slides. Feel free to share your LinkedIn or your email with everyone in the chat, right, that you connected with today. It is always helpful to stay connected, to learn from each other. Again, no matter where we're at in our inclusion journey, we can all collaborate more, share ideas more, learn from each other, and better ourselves, right? So if there's nothing else, I'll bid you all adieu. Thank you for coming. This is a phenomenal 3 days. Thank you, Greer, and the organizing party for setting this up in the first place. We were all happy to participate. And I hope you enjoy your Halloween and the rest of your weekend and stay moving forward
Amazing.
to building a truly inclusive culture.
Thank you, Sarah. Really appreciate that. I'm going to close this out.